Well, we are heading back to Boston, tied 2 apiece. Leafs lose 6-4 to the Boston Bruins at Scotiabank Arena there tonight. And, the Leafs right from the get-go seem to be trailing the game. At one point tied it, but then were trailing again, and then made a late push near the end. But it was too little too late, as, like I said, they lose 6-4 to the Boston Bruins. Now, what was the story in the first 3 games of the series? And the key to this team, this Leafs team, winning the series, being able to contain Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Brad Marchand. Right? Well, Charlie McAvoy scores on the power play. We talked about that in how to shut down the Bruins. Stay off the penalty kill. You don't. They get an early power play and 3:03 in. Charlie McAvoy buries one, and it's 1-0. 6:38 in. Brad Marchand. He scores his second of the playoffs, and it's a 2-0 Bruins lead not even 7 minutes into the game. That's a tough one. The Leafs actually come on there as the period goes along, though, and with just under 3 to play, Zach Hyman tips in a Morgan Rielly point shot to make it a 2-1 hockey game. We're right back in this thing. And just a minute 7 seconds into the second period, Austin Matthews, bolting down the right side, rips it under the arm of Tuukka Rask. He gets a piece of it, but not enough as it squeaks through and into the net, and we're tied at 2 early in the second. We got ourselves a whole new hockey game. Not really. Just over 2 minutes after that, David Pastrnak, assisted by Marchand and Bergeron. Not even 2 minutes after that, Pastrnak again on the power play, assisted by Brad Marchand. We talked about it, guys, as this being the line you have to contain and stay off the penalty kill to win against the Boston Bruins. They scored 2 power play goals, Marchand scores 1, and Pastrnak scores 2. It happens, right? That's the recipe for them winning this series, is if that line can tear apart the Leafs, then the Leafs are going to have a problem. Now, again, I'm not worried about what the Leafs are doing, but they have to find a way to contain that line in order to win this series. And 5:39 into the third period, Zdeno Chara scores, and who the heck cares at that point, right? It's a 5-2 game. But midway through the third period, the Leafs get a power play, and Austin Matthews buries in the loose puck, his third of the playoffs. The power play marker, Marner and Rielly grab assists in a 5-3 game. It's still tough, though, midway through the third period. Not even 2 minutes after, Travis Dermott gets the puck about top of the circle, but middle of the slot, that kind of area, and beats Tuukka Rask. We got ourselves a hockey game with under 7 minutes to play. It's a 5-4 game. The Leafs put the pressure on, but then Joakim Nordstrom, with 2 seconds left, buries the empty netter, and the Leafs lose 6-4. Too little, too late, right? Now we can go back and look. Well, if Chara didn't score that goal, we'd have a tied hockey game. But again, you can go back and say, look, the reason the Leafs outshot the Bruins 42-31, but the penalty kill. The Bruins had 2 opportunities. They buried on both. The face-off dot was a problem. You look at the last game, the Leafs won, 56%, and Bruins only won 44%. Today, it was the flip to the switch. 58.9% face-off wins for the Boston Bruins, 41.1% for the Leafs, right? Hits were, -2. Actually, the Leafs were actually +2 in the game in hits, and a +11 in shots. Rask was good. They made most of their opportunities, and, that's just the way it happens, right, guys? I mean, look. If anybody expected less than 6 or 7 games for the Leafs and Bruins, you're nuts. Because this team not only has a history of going to 7 games, but they're very, very good teams. Both teams have dominated games, right? It seems to be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Leafs dominate game 1. Bruins dominate game 2. Leafs, for the most part, dominate game 3. And even really in game 4, I'd say the Leafs played a pretty good game. But, like I said, the Bruins made most of their opportunities, and they got the job done, potting in 5 goals and the empty netter. Freddie wasn't the greatest in the game, but he didn't get a lot of help defensively. You look at that first Pastrnak goal, guys, and it was a deflection. Nikita Zaitsev blocked the initial pass, but then he goes right back to Marchand's skate. Mitch Marner's trailing Pasternak. You can't really be trailing him. You got to be glued to him, and he gets a stick on it and beats Frederik Andersen. And then in the power play, the two defensemen are watching the puck. Meanwhile, Pasternak is backdoor, gets the pass, buries the pass Freddie Andersen. Some mental breakdowns defensively, and the Bruins pounce. Especially in the penalty kill, and especially with that line on the ice. You gotta find a way to contain them, and the Leafs really didn't tonight. Now, I'm hoping it's not a coming out party. I'm hoping it's kind of a one-time deal. The next game for the Leafs and the Bruins is Game 5 at TD Garden. This game is huge in the series, because whoever wins it plays the final two games as an elimination game. The other team has to fight for their lives. And Leaf fans, we know damn well how it is as Leaf fans trying to crawl back into series against the Boston Bruins. It's happened the last two times we faced them, being down 3-1 and having to try to come back. But this time we want it to be different. And I'm hoping, look, if you can find a way to beat Boston in Boston and come home looking to eliminate the Bruins, I don't want to see it go to 7. But the only way to do that is to win your next two games. So it's going to be tricky. Tonight's game was a big, big one. The Leafs do lose it. Now we go back to Boston tied 2 apiece. This series is wide open, people. It's been a whole bunch of craziness, in the first 4 games, as we expected. And by the way, the Tampa Bay Lightning, if you haven't seen it, got swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's beautiful. The number 1 seed got eliminated by the number 8 seed. I love it. Don't you just love it? That's what happens when you don't have any competitive hockey for months on end. Meanwhile, Columbus is battling for their playoff lives till the last day of the season, the last 2 days of the season. They had all the momentum going into the playoffs, and clearly they showed it, as now they're resting, waiting for the winner of the Leafs and Bruins series. And whoever wins the series between the Leafs and Bruins has home ice against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So it's a very, very important thing for these two teams to find a way to get out of this series. And if the Leafs can find a way to get through this series and have home ice against Columbus, oh boy. I'm not saying Columbus is going to be a cakewalk, because it's not. They clearly swept the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I kind of like the matchup a little bit. Anyways, we're not going to get into that kind of stuff because it's a 2-2 series, Leafs and Bruins. There's a lot of hockey to be played. And the next game is Friday night in TD Garden, 7 o'clock puck drop, as the Leafs look to find a way to get a 3-2 series lead and then come back home looking to eliminate the Boston Bruins. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be a grind. The Leafs got to do what they did in Game 1. Show that physical presence, get their speed going early in the game. We talked about it in the last video, guys. We talked about it in the first 5 minutes of the game. The Leafs had to come out flying because they knew the Bruins were going to do so. They did. They buried 2. They're coming home now after playing tonight's game and getting the job done. They're fired up and ready to go for TD Garden on Friday night. For the Leafs, they got to come out with the same intensity that they did in Game 3 and in Game 1 and take it to the Bruins early on and score the first goal. It is a huge key in the series. The Leafs did it in Game 3. The Bruins did it in Game 2. Yes, the Bruins scored it first in Game 1 and then they ended up losing, but 3 of the 4 games have been the winners have scored first. So, and that's the last 3 games have been like that. So for the Leafs, in TD Garden on Friday night, it is the first goal that really matters. Find a way to beat Tuukka Rask early, and you might find a way to win that game. It's going to be tough, though, in TD Garden. But you know what? Hockey is a crazy thing. The road teams have been very good in the NHL playoffs so far. Look at St. Louis and Winnipeg. It's a 2-2 series. All the wins are on the road for both teams. Look at Columbus. They beat Tampa Bay twice in Tampa, right? I think Dallas beat Nashville once in Nashville. Home ice, means something. But if the Leafs can find a way to establish their play early on, they can find a way to get a victory there on Friday night. All right, so guys, that is going to do it for this one. You guys enjoyed this video, and you guys are kind of like, ugh, when it comes to this game there tonight. Smack that like button. Do appreciate that. Hit the subscribe button if you guys have not already. Comment down below what you think of the game, the video, the Leafs play, Anderson's game, the defensive game, also the ability to crawl back into the game, which I thought they did a really good job not giving up and continuing to fight to the bitter end, basically, and showing that fight, even though it really doesn't mean anything in the playoffs because it's a loss, and that's what hurts. But you know what, guys? That happens, right? You can't dwell on it too much, and you got to move on to Game 5 because that's just what's happening. You can't dwell on Game 4 because that is done and gone. All right, so guys, Evan and I will talk to you in this podcast edition where we have no idea as of right now when we're going to be doing the podcast. Links are in the description for the podcast channel and for the podcast itself on iTunes. Twitter is also down below. Follow up, send me a DM, do all that great stuff. And I will talk to you guys. It'll be Blue Jays edition later on tonight, as they were in a rain delay earlier on, so they're going to be playing a little bit later. Well, they're already playing right now, but the video will be uploaded later than it was expected. As the Blue Jays look to win their third straight against the Minnesota Twins. They're down 4-1 right now, so it's not going to be an easy one there down the stretch for the Toronto Blue Jays. And as for the Raptors, they play on Friday night as well, down in Orlando for Game 3 of their first round matchup against the Orlando Magic. It is going to be a fight there in Orlando because you know they're going to get their A game. The first quarter is massive for the Raptors. You set that tone early on in the game in their building, and you're in the driving seat the rest of the way. But it's going to be a fight. You know you're going to get their A game. They're going to get their number one punch right away. The Raptors are going to counter that and play a solid first quarter and get the victory there on Friday night. All right. And as for the Leafs, by the way, it's a 7 o'clock tip-off there down in Orlando. And as for the Buds, like we talked about, their next game is Friday as well, 7 o'clock as well. Damn it. As the Leafs are at TD Garden to take on the Boston Bruins in Game 5 of their 7-game series. Here we go. This is a big game on Friday night. The winner needs one more win to move on to the second round. The loser is in do or die mode. All right, so it's a big game there on Friday night. 7 o'clock puck drop there at TD Garden. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you guys then.